Hello, everybody. My name is Phil MacDougall, and you are on What Drives Reno. I have a very special guest here with us today. Someone that I've had the pleasure to get. No, it's you. He's looking the other way. Aaron S. Hagar. Thank you very much for coming on our show with us today. I got a chance to get to know you over the last week or two. Actually, crunch time in the last week or two. So thank you very much for coming on board with us today.
Of course, my man. Of course. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, first of all, in the museum and here and anywhere else you've been placing me these days. It's been a wild week.
It's been a crazy week. So for those of you watching the show today, we are really, really pleased because we have a brand new exhibit here. It's the Aaron S. Hagar exhibit. And it just rolled in last Thursday, the ribbon cutting, and we couldn't be more excited. So thank you very much for doing that. For those of you who have not come down to the museum, you got to check it out. But we're here to talk about you, and it's kind of a tradition. So the very first thing we talk about, it's all about you today. First thing I ask everybody in the show is, what is their first car? And if there's a story you could share about that first car.
I think everybody's first car has lots of stories, especially if it's a four-seater. Mine was a two-seater, so that made it a little more interesting. 1958 Alfa Romeo. It was in the rafters of my buddy's shop. Bruce, good old Bruce, the Alfa guy. And we had him take it down and clean it up a little bit because it had been up there for a long time. And 1958 Alfa Romeo, a little tiny motor, baffled oil pans, magnesium oil pans. That little thing was quick. Little thing was quick.
You still have it? Or is that the one you told me about?
That's the one I told you about.
One.
I went to go get it. I would still have it, but Dad got impatient. I put it down there for safekeeping, and apparently that didn't work. But I think, I've got every story of my childhood in that car. I used to drive that car literally from Marin or the Bay Area all the way to LA, work in the film industry like for 3 days straight with no sleep, and then drive all the way back to school. I was a maniac in that car. But I think my favorite story, my favorite story is my childhood friend Chad Grulock and I were in Malibu. I think we were at the Trancas Market, and we had there's always like celebrities wandering around in there. You run into everybody, but it's Malibu back in the 80s. It's family. And Kathy Ireland was in the checkout lane, and she kept eyeballing us, two young guys. And we get in the car, and we're just about to back out, and she comes up to the front, runs her finger along the car, and says, "Cute car." She had that little voice back then, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, thanks." And Chad's like elbowing me in the shoulder, dude.
That was your intro. That was your chance.
I'm like, I'm good, and backed out and left. And he still tells that story to this day.
You left her, so you can officially can say you
good
left
for her. She's a successful woman, but I wasn't into models. I wasn't that kid growing up. Chad was, but I wasn't. I knew better.
See, it's funny. We talked about the first car, and you just took me down memory lane really quickly, because the very first thing I think of is the clothes back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any of those moments? You look back and you go, "Oh my Lord!" I can just tell you what one of mine was. My wife, I come back and I pull one out and I go, "Oh my Lord!" I had these Hammer Time pants and this hairdo that you would have thought was like, what? Yes, and actually, I'm mortified to look at it. You have any of those kind of stories back then?
Oh, sure. I find old photographs all the time and just giggle. It's like, what was paisley? I used to wear paisley and kilts and long sweaters. I was a total goth kid, so eyeliner and, I think my senior picture I was wearing teeth and scleral lenses.
Isn't that funny how you look back and you go, what were we thinking at certain times? And a lot of that stuff, it just comes back full circle again. There's some outfits here in the museum back in the cars like 1890 something, and I'm looking at those outfits and I go, man, those are really old. And I look back in MTV videos or something and I go, they're wearing them again. They're wearing the clothes they wore back 200 years ago.
So check this out. So my wife just the other day actually wears this it's like a space shirt. It's what's left of it. It's all little space and stars and little nebulas and stuff, and it's got cut off sleeves and a wide neck and a curled up bottom edge, because I believe Dad had that in Montrose. So in the 70s, he had that shirt, and it used to glow in the dark. I remember it used to glow in the dark, and he cuts everything, so it kind of nurdles along the sides, And then I wore it in high school, because that's just what you do. And now my wife's wearing it. My wife's wearing my pants from high school too. I have some old black Guess semi-high jeans, but back then I was like a 26, and she's like a 0 or a 1, and she wears them.
That's the other part that kind of bums me out. I look back at that waistline back then. I go, oh man, that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
Listen, you mentioned Dad a couple of times. So people who don't know, could you just reference who your father is? Might not know.
I'm part of the Hagar clan. Sammy Hagar. He's the ultimate adventurer.
He's the one that stored your car, your first car for you.
Right? Yeah, he's the one. Yeah. Don't trust the Hagar Storage Company.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, car guy, musician. Cabo Wabo, Sammy's Beach Bar Rum, Santo Tequila. He just keeps going. He's the Energizer Bunny. The real one. Yeah.
No, he really, he's the original. He's the original. Let's jump in a little bit about the exhibit. So we couldn't be happier. For those, I told the story the other day when we did the ribbon cutting ceremony, and I sincerely mean this. We were going back and forth in emails a few times, and I said a lot of people I met, but when we first had our conversation, I knew you're the real deal. I sincerely mean that. I knew you're the real deal. I went up there, met you in person. I said, this guy is amazing. You feel like you've known him your whole life. You really do.
Oh, thank you.
And not a lot of people can say that. And when the camera's on and off, you're the same guy. That's important too. People need to realize. There's probably been some people in your world that you've said, "Wow, they come off like so great," but then the camera goes off. They're not the same people anymore.
Boring human being.
This is the real guy, on and off camera. So you came in, you did it. You met with some of our Driving Force Club members. You had a lot of our volunteers
really
here.
fun.
We had a good crowd. The exhibit is here at the National Automobile Museum. Started last week. It's going to be through the end of probably about 2 months now, and then it'll go through some versions. You even had a brand new addition today to the exhibit.
Yeah.
People haven't seen you. You just wrote it in.
Yeah. So I drove it in. So the 56 Woody wagon. So they never made a Woody in 56, and I had this wagon that I was trading up from a $500 motorcycle, like over the years trading up for this wagon. And I had finished it, and it was ready to go. And Dad's like, I want that wagon. Let's make it a Woody and use it for the rum company. And I'm like, no, it's like, that's so much more work. And he said, I'll pay you for it. And I said, okay, but I want this much. And he gave me much less. And then I had to do all the extra work. But it was good because it's still in the family. So it worked out. So I got a little
and now it's in the museum. And everyone else gets a chance to
That's
enjoy
right.
it.
So I carved all the wood out of a vintage teak. It was over 100 years old, an old cabinet. Took it apart and repurposed it. Everything on that car is repurposed. Built the roof rack, and all the old surfboards are from the 50s and 60s. The old rod and reel is from the 60s, and everything in there is authentic and real, and it tells a story, and I love that car. Took it out of storage after 3 years down at Dad's warehouse. Somehow that managed to be, preserved. That made it. And switched out the battery, put some air in the tires, some fresh gas, and drove it up here from Marin. That's the way we like to build them. No trailers.
I literally got a chance just to look at it briefly because we came in here to do the show right away. And he literally did. He just drove it in here,
literally.
Parked it in the middle of the museum. We came over to do the show, and here we are. And then you go finish the exhibit.
Authentic.
So tell us a little bit about what people are going to see when they come into the exhibit, because it starts off. It's your history, about 80 feet of exhibit space, automobiles, motorcycles, a drawing board. Tell us a little bit about what you're trying to project.
Filling 80 feet is a big job. I thought I got
your
plenty
eyes
of
light
work.
up.
I got plenty of cars. Oh my gosh, I did not. It's really, first of all, thank you. I've never shown in galleries. I don't show in car shows. I showed at a couple of galleries for shows, but not regularly. And just bypassed all of that straight into museum. So thank you.
The National Automobile Museum. You went right to the National.
Museum. My gosh. So huge honor. Totally took me by surprise. I got to say, I get a lot of crank calls, and I didn't really take it seriously. And that's part of the joy of the story, is that I didn't really take it seriously. I didn't know what I was getting into.
I can tell we're emailing back and
I'm
forth.
like, some casino thing.
But when we spoke on the phone, we knew it was real.
I know. I was such a fool, and I never came here. And one of those things that you just miss when you're working in food and beverage at 20 hours a day for 10 years. You just miss it. But here we are, and I'm thankful and grateful. And I tried to tell a story. Tell the story of the artist, tell the story of the craftsman and welder and fabricator, and some of the opportunities I've had to build some really interesting cars for myself, and then extend it into my family. Some things I've kind of collected and modified and customized, some things I've had for 15, 16, 18, 20 years. Some things I got from other talented people and then used for off-roading and like the motorcycle. But yeah, most of it I built nearly from scratch, or I modified. My car friends call me a cake decorator. I'm like, I'm fine. I don't have to make the cake. I can decorate it. That's okay with that. But yeah, you kind of become a mechanic along the way, when you start with a classic car and always own a classic car. I'm one to work on things myself. I am not a mechanic, but you learn some skill sets along the way. But yeah, you will see a journey here. Like I said, starting with the artist and all the way up to current. We're big overlanders, and that's something we took to like everybody else during the pandemic. We did 9,000 miles off-road in that year, so that was pretty good. Nevada was open.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hopefully it tells a story and fits right in.
Well, tell us a few of the automobiles that are in there. Could you share with our viewers what we have?
Yeah, we'll start with the Woody Wagon, which we're just putting in now, and I'll set up. It's a great display for the rum. It's really cool. And then my Morgan three-wheeler, which I've been dreaming about for a long, long time.
That's a big hit. People are taking a lot of photos of that.
It's so fun. And I tried to turn back the clock, because it's a 2013. It's a legacy vehicle, kind of a continuation from Morgan. So I tried to kind of push it back in time. And then we have my TR3, which I've had for close to 16 years, I think, or so. Was my best friend's ex-wife's father. Retired in the 70s, so most of that car is up to that point. Everything on it's authentic. And then what do we have? My old Mini Cooper, a Series 1, a Mark 1, 1960, little rally race car. And then the Pinzgauer. And in between there,
that's a beast right there.
Yeah, the Pinzgauer is very unique.
Yeah.
I've had that for almost 20 years. That was my winter vehicle. It took a quarter tank to get to work and back in the winter. Not very economical.
No, that doesn't
But
work.
it would go anywhere, and that was the trade-off, is that I trusted that thing. It's 24 volt. It would sit all summer, crank it up, fire it right up. I mean, that thing was awesome. And then in between is some bikes. We have the Cabo Wabo race bike. I have my uncle's Norton that he bought brand new in 75. One of the first bikes I ever rode on, and he always had a matching Mini, and that's why they're together, because they're a pair. And then I have my Triumph Tiger, which is
That's really
in front
cool.
of the Pinzgauer, because that came from Katrina Lofton, her ex-husband Mike Winkle.
And that's how we met.
Was how we met, and Mike was and the Yule brothers were part of Eurocycle here. They started Eurocycle, and I bought that off Mike. That was his personal bike, and he built it kind of as a prototype thing before Triumph had evolved into all those mechanical things that they have now to make it off-road. That was kind of an early version of it, and he really dialed that bike in, so it's kind of one of a kind. And I've put another 10,000 miles off-road on that thing and loved every minute of it.
You shared a story with me, if you don't mind repeating, about the motorcycle, the Cabo Wabo. Can you touch base on that, about the grassroots campaign and a little bit of history? When people come down to the museum, they have no idea how much that affected or influenced the campaign going forward.
Well, the reason why that bike looks the way it does is because it is an old race bike. I did have to replace some parts of that bike. Was crashed at Daytona, unfortunately, with a fatality. So I took what was left of the bike, and with our original rider, Dave Wasson, our main rider, and he and I put it all back together and put it on display. So I matched all the color to duct tape because he crashed so much that it was easier just to cover it with duct tape. But we started a little grassroots race team when Cabo Wabo first started, and Dad was marketing it. And I thought, the fans do this, and that's a great marketing thing. And I was trying to get my buddy a ride because he didn't have a ride that year. He wasn't sponsored. And so we worked out a very modest agreement to put him out there for a couple seasons, and we worked with some locals, and they helped us out with the bike too. And we schlepped T-shirts every race to get budget for the next race, and stickers and anything we could do to make money. And we took I think 12 regional championships and 3 or 4 national championships, AMA, AFM. It's a big deal for a little privateer in the mid-90s,
Share the story with me about, even if the driver didn't win, he was what?
Yeah, so Dave was so good. He really understood marketing. So even if he didn't win, he would make sure to be crossing the finish line with the guys that did win. He'd be doing a stoppie or a wheelie or just rolling as a trio.
He'd be doing it in style.
Yeah, he was doing his thing.
That's a good marketer.
Hats off to
Even
Dave.
in his last place, he's still there at the finishing line, making sure doing a wheelie. That's
exactly.
good.
Cabo Wabo was always in the shot.
So back then, Cabo Wabo wasn't as well known, but
Wasn't known at all.
It's funny to see how far it's come. Everyone knows that
know.
name of that brand now.
I know it was one of the largest private sales. I think Oprah had the largest private sale of anything any business she had started. Dad had the second. It was like 120 million or something. Good for Dad. I mean, it's awesome. And I'd like to think that Cabo Wabo racing was a small part of that.
A big part of it. Grassroots, that's where it all starts.
Sure. Well, it's just fun. We looked like $1 million on the track. Being a custom painter and being an artist, I could always make us look good. And Dave rode good.
All right, so for those who might not know you, and there's probably very few people that don't know you or know of you, let's just talk about a couple of things, because you're an artist. Mm-hmm. We talked about that. I forget the phrase you used. Heart and soul, and you said something about metal. How did you say about iron and metal?
The resurrection of old. So the Rat Runner Garage is, I used to call it the art of preserving and resurrecting old metal. Because here, when I moved to Tahoe, being a car guy, I had nothing. When I moved up here, I had nothing. I started over. I was coming out of a divorce and literally started with nothing. So everything I acquired was either free or cheap or
trade
or trade.
Like
exactly. So I came up with this concept. I was trying to get out of food and beverage after 10 years. It's a really hard life. It's not my life. I served it for 10 years, and I was looking for an exit plan. So I came up with a shop and kind of an idea of what I wanted to do in a TV show, and I had a little band project, and just trying to do things that I was familiar with. And in that, I designed the Rat Runner's Garage, and it was just my place to play and kind of get back to center and work on old relics.
Can you explain to our viewers what that is?
Rat
Runner Garage.
It was just my place, to just my little garage.
Okay.
And it started out.
It's a pretty cool garage.
Yeah, it started out on the back of a trailer, really, where I made my first car with used parts or free parts. And the idea was resurrecting old metal, because Tahoe was abundant with it from the logging industry and the mining industry and agriculture. People were literally giving me old cars and trucks and pieces and parts, and that's why I got into the rat rod culture very early. Yeah. I saw Billy Gibbons' little truck, and I built a truck very similar in my eyes to it, except without the surfboards, and I did all aircraft theme. And that became a show for a little while. I've done a lot of other TV shows with other people I've met in the industry and at SEMA. And that car's been to SEMA, the Woody Wagon's been to SEMA on invitation. Really, it just turned into this great life, and it's kind of taken off, and it's become a global thing with the culture of rat rods and custom culture. It became very popular, and I got on that wave, and it was awesome.
So artist, entertainer, I've heard you got some pipes. I heard you rocking out there.
That job was already taken. But
yeah, but I heard that.
I'm supplemental. Supplemental.
That's great. So what other things do we not know about you, or do people
oh my gosh
probably be interested to know?
I crochet. No,
you crochet? No, that one I did not see coming anywhere. I did not see that one coming.
No, I don't work much with glass. That's one of the things that kind of became popular. I'm not part of that culture, but I've never done much of that kind of stuff, but never played with glass. I've always been fascinated by, I can't even cut flat glass for my hot rods. I have to have someone else do it. But yeah, I played with some woodwork, and I can't say I mastered that, but the Woody Wagon is a lot of fun, and it's just being a creative person. I think when you're born into creativity, you serve it. Whether it's an obsession or a commission or just a need. Creative problem solving is a need, and I got to exercise that in the food and beverage industry too, to very rigid people.
Yes. If you can get through that, you can get through anything.
That was a great learning experience, let me tell you. Yeah, getting through that's kryptonite.
We got a couple of minutes left. I know one of your next journeys or projects, you're going to go somewhere north. You want to share with the viewers where you're going?
Yes, extreme north. So
can't get much more.
Right. So we've always been hikers and backpackers. I grew up in the mountains, and that evolved into moto camping on the motorcycle. And I had the old Pinscars to take the kids camping and all that, and then that's evolved into overlanding, moto camping, and so I built out a vintage Defender, a 110, and I built out a Jeep Gladiator. and with Alucab and some other partners. And
I've seen them. They're amazing.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
But we're doing the Arctic Circle. So this has been a couple-year plan with a group that we overland with.
I don't know if people caught that. He's going to the Arctic Circle.
Yeah,
in about a week
not
or so.
Antarctic. There's the north and south. So
Yeah.
we're doing the northern.
You're going
route.
up there.
The most northern point of Alaska, about 7,700 miles. So we're doing almost 10,000 miles round trip because we're doing both overland expos. So we're going to bookend expos, one in Oregon and the ending one at the end of August in Colorado. So we're going to drive to all of them. But the intention is to take both rigs to up Alaska. So
Yeah.
it's going to be amazing.
And
amazing.
I had a chance to look at it and visit and give me a tour. It
Yeah.
looks like something you got to see on one of these movies, you know, or what's that movie? Not the Terminator. Well, a little bit of Terminator, a little bit of the
I know, everybody says
Transformer,
Apocalypse,
a little bit of
Apocalypse.
Transformers, a little bit of that too. It's got a lot.
I don't know.
We got about a minute or
Super
so
fun.
left. Is there anything you want to make sure the people watching today know about what you have plans, or if they want to follow you, or what would you like to
Sure,
communicate
you can follow me
to
all
our
over.
viewers today?
Yeah, you can follow me just under Aaron Hagar. The Hagar family is pretty active in the world. But no, most importantly, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you to you and Katrina and all the stewards of the museum and the curators. Being here is unbelievable. It was never even part of my dream list because it just seemed like such a far thing. Like that's what you do when you're gone. You know what I mean? So thank you.
Yeah, you want to be around to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And see everybody see it. And the
Definitely.
social media has been great. People are loving the exhibit. For those of you who have not seen it yet, the exhibit just opened on Thursday. It'll be here for a couple of months, and it's fun to watch you work.
Come see it.
Because I can see you. I can see you looking at it, and I can see you go, well. And I'm going to put that there, and I can see your mind going, getting creative. Well, I'm going to bring the Woody down, and maybe I got some other things I want to do. But the other part, too, he's the real deal. So when we had everybody come down and meet, you spent hours talking to everybody, making sure and answering questions. And every one of them said the same thing to me. One of the nicest men they ever met.
Very kind.
Goes a long way. Goes a long way. And people see that, and they see it in your work. So we're very, very grateful to have you here.
Thank you.
And I have a feeling this is just the beginning between us.
I think so too.
All right,
Much to do.
Thank you very much.
Phil.
I appreciate it. For those of you watching today, if you want to learn more about the National Automobile Museum, just go to www.automuseum.org. We have a great exhibit. It's going to be here, the Aaron S. Hagar exhibit. It'll be here for a couple of months, and I think it's going to be changing. He's always doing something fresh. If you're not familiar with the museum, get familiar with it. Voted #1 on TripAdvisor's a favorite place to visit in Reno, favorite museum in Reno, 16,000 square feet. I'm sorry, 16,000. That's just our patio.
Yeah,
the
that's
river.
just the patio.
We're 105,000 square feet.
Oh, I've been saying 106. Sorry about that.
106. Every time I say it, I add 1,000 on it. 105,000 square feet. Thank you very much for following us today. Come visit us at the museum anytime, 7 days a week. National Automobile Museum. Take care.